no cookies before dinner. You're gonna spoil your appetite.
Well done, resisting temptation. You don't need those empty calories anyway.
Whoa, wait. What's for dinner tonight? Meatloaf and Brussels sprouts? Go ahead and spoil it. You'll thank me later, bro.
You can't seriously be considering this, can you? Your father forbid it.
That guy? He sings Miley Cyrus songs in the shower. Exclusively Hannah Montana era stuff, too. His judgment is questionable at best.
Oh, and aren't you just a sterling example of good judgment?
You know it.
So last week when you skipped math homework to play video games, how did that work out for you?
Okay. Did we fail the test? Yes, we did. But in our defense, did Romans really need their own numerals? XII minus V is VII? How does that make any freaking sense?
Sounds like you've got XCIX problems, but arithmetic comprehension ain't I. Hit me!
Enough. All right, let's hear your closing arguments. Go.
Do you really want to deliberately disobey your parents? Besides, it's not even worth it. Avenger Falls are like a C-tier Girl Scout cookie anyway. S-tier Thin Mints all the way.
Come on, nobody's looking. It's just one cookie. Just pop it in and move on with your life. And it's for a good cause. Don't you want to support female confectionery entrepreneurship?
I'm sorry, I can't do it.
Yeah.
A wise decision.
Whoa, Angel, is that a crumb on your sleeve?
No, I have no idea what you...
Wait, is that a raspberry rally? Did you eat the last raspberry rally?
Well, yes, but I can explain.
Man, that's more like it. Now let's continue the mayhem and go jump on a trampoline without a net.
So last month, I wanted to make a short live action / animation hybrid video. My son Cameron, wondering if he should use some cookies or not, and having a little angel and devil appear on his shoulder and have a back and forth about it. And it was a really interesting process to get me from the initial thought all the way to exporting out the final piece. And it involved quite a lot of tools. So starting with Adobe Firefly to use AI to create the actual angel and devil characters, and then using Adobe Photoshop to take them apart and get them ready for animation, using Character Animator to do some character rigging, as well as the recording of the animation, Adobe Audition to do the audio, all the dialogue stuff, including some pitch shifting, then moving into Premiere Pro for the editing of the video, and finally to After Effects for adding the final effects. So there was a lot of stuff going on there, and I thought it was an interesting creative process. And I've gotten a few comments asking how I did it and how I put all the pieces together. So that's what this tutorial is about. We're going to walk through the various steps of taking AI-generated characters, getting them ready for animation, mixing them up with live action footage, and putting it together to create a fun little social media video. So if that sounds interesting to you, let's get started. All right, so I started out at firefly.adobe.com. I went to the text to image tool down here, and I typed in a prompt of what type of character I wanted. In this case, it was the angel and devil character. So for the angel, I wrote a highly detailed clay cute angel, and I used the parameters for it to be a photo, hyper-realistic, and 3D. And I used these things over here to make it a photo, and down here, the hyper-realistic and 3D. And so this gave me a really nice, lifelike character that felt like, like a clay model or a porcelain doll or something like that. And that's kind of the look that I was going for these. So I got a few different variations based off of that. And then for the devil character, same sort of thing, a highly detailed clay cute devil, and got a bunch of nice variations there. So the ones that I liked the best were this angel character and this devil character. And the process of bringing these into a character animator character, like I have here, there's a full tutorial about this. If you missed it, it's the one where I take the tiger character and basically take a still image and then convert it into a character animator animated puppet. So I'm not going to just reiterate all the same things that I talked about in that video. So if you really want to know the rigging process, I would highly recommend checking that out. That's going to go into more detail than I am here. But just at the top level, the three main things I wanted to do were, number one, separating the head from the body so it can pivot and move. And in this case, with the angel, I did the head, the body, as well as the hair and the wings, because I wanted those to be able the head to move in front of and move as well. So those were the three. Those were the first. That was the first thing. And then secondly are the eyes. And so if I take this away, you can kind of just see I made these eyes behind the character, kind of like this is a mask, right? So if I took the eyes away, it's kind of like cut out holes and the mask appeared. I ended up not doing blinks for this character because it would be complicated to add these eyelashes going up and down. Of course, you could do it, but I was trying to do this pretty quickly, and so I didn't add those. But I did add in some additional eye expressions for the character. So I just kind of painted over here the eyes. If I take this away, you'll see just kind of painted over using clone stamping and other techniques in Photoshop or generative fill to fill in and then draw over top these eyes. So I did the impressed eyes and then turned them upside down for the happy eyes. And that's the same stuff I used for the eyebrow as well. I think I just kind of bended it and warped it around to get it to look like that. So trying to get some different values there. And then the third thing after head removal and the eyes would be the mouth. And so this character, if you remember, had a mouth that she came with, but I wanted a full set of, all the different mouth shapes. And so I basically painted over that one and then added all my usual character animator mouth shapes in there for her in both a happy and a sad mouth set. The devil character was a little easier to work with, separating the head from the body because obviously there's no, wings or hair or anything behind it. It was a pretty clean cut. And then this is what his eyes look like behind the scenes. So again, it's a cutout mask here. And we've got the eyebrows that I added in. The original character didn't have eyebrows. I wanted to add that for extra expressiveness. And then these lids that show up. He has a 2-frame and a cycle layers animation where I bring down the lids like that to have him have a nice smoother animation when his eyes open and kind of go to this half thing. So most of the time he's got it half like this, and then same thing with the mouth. I did the the mouths, the happy and sad mouth set as well, painted over his existing mouth, and then I was good to go to bring it into Character Animator. And then using the exact same process like I showed in that Tiger AI video, I animated the characters and rigged them in Character Animator. And so you can see here, I've got my devil character, got the eyebrows attached as the eyes look around. I've got that. I've got the different triggers that I did. So very basic triggers. Just when I press 1, he'll go to happy, which I think he only does like once or twice in the whole thing. He's usually pretty solemn. And then the lids, when I press 2, he's going to go like this. And this is how he usually looks. And then sometimes he opens up his eyes in surprise about something. But that felt like that gave me enough range of emotion for this character, particularly for a 2-minute short. The eyes and the mouth, I think, are the most important parts. So just kind of trying to focus on that and give him enough emotional range to have punctuate certain moments. Same thing with the angel, really basic setup. So you could see here, I added some dangle to her hair at the bottom to make it kind of move around, which is nice. And then added the wings and, the head movements. And then, of course, the happy and sad, which she does change quite a lot from happy and sad mouth set, as well as the impressed eyes and the happy eyes that go over top. So again, just trying to get a lot of emotional range to the characters and make something, interesting. So once I had these characters ready to go, next step was to give them something to do. And so I ended up writing this script and just had something simple. We had just gotten some Girl Scout cookies. So I thought, oh, that'd be a good, way to have this kind of moral dilemma between these things. I will admit, I tried using ChatGPT for this because I wanted to do a whole AI, check out what you can do with AI type thing. It was not good. I asked for, a comedy short video, and it's just the characters, everything was very, very generic and not funny. There were no Miley Cyrus references, for example, like I tried to do with mine. So we're not quite there yet with this. I think hopefully I did a better job. That might be debatable. But anyway, wrote out these things and then, had some settings about how I want to do things, about reaching into things and what the expressions are, and then some of the different framed shots that I wanted to do. So I didn't storyboard it out. I just had a general idea of what I was going for. So now we need the voices for our characters. And of course, you get your friends or family members to do these sorts of things. But for this, I ended up doing the voice for both the devil and the angel. And then I just did a little bit of pitch shifting to make them sound a little bit different in Adobe Audition. So I'm here in Audition. Let's just hear what this sounds like really quick as an example.
Hello, this is the angel voice, and I'm trying to show you an example of how it works.
Hello, this is the devil voice. I'm trying something a little different here. Okay, wonderful acting, Dave. Really good job there. Right. Okay, so here we've got our angel setting. So what I'm going to do is go to Effects, Time and Pitch, and go down to Pitch Shifter. And the angel was a little bit more high pitch. So I just changed the semitones very slightly. And let's hear what this sounds like.
Hello, this is the angel voice, and I'm trying to show you an example of how it works.
So you don't want to go too chipmunky, right? Too high.
Hello, this is the
Right, but something pretty subtle, just a few semitones up is
angel voice, and I'm trying to show you an example.
Right, so that's pretty good. And then I would apply that. And then for the devil, we moved it down. So let's go again to same sort of thing, pitch shifter. And instead, this time, let's move it down. So here's what it sounds like without. You can bypass it by just clicking this little power button. Hello, this is the devil voice. I'm trying something a little different here.
Hello, this is the devil voice. I'm trying something a little different here. Hello, this is the...
So again, play around with it, see what you like, press apply, and you will apply it. And then I took those two voices and went into a new multi-track session. So I selected this guy right here, insert into multi-track, created a new multi-track session. And then I had my two clips on each track. So I had my angel here. I probably should have named these, huh? That probably would have been smart. Probably should have done that before the tutorial. Whatever. And so you've got these two tracks. And then basically I cut them and added them in, giving enough timing for everything, including gaps for when Cameron speaks in the video when he has, some back and forth with them. So just trying to edit these and trim these. And even if I messed up a few times, listening back and getting the right take. So just to show an example, let's say I brought this angel track new in here and I see all these different clips and I say, okay, here's where this guy starts talking and I like this take. So I press R to get this razor tool, cut it at the beginning and end, take out the part I don't want, move on to the next one. Let's say this was a good take and this was a good take and so on and so forth. And then I just delete the parts I don't want and time them against the other character back and forth. And so that's just the process, kind of going through the whole thing like that until I feel like I've got something that works. This is not a new process, by the way. I've shown this multiple times, most recently in the complete cartoon workflow video where I did this with the different consoles characters, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, all talking back and forth with background music and all of that. So we need these tracks isolated in Character Animator, right? So I want the angel track by itself and I want the devil track by itself so I can use that for the lip sync for the characters. So I would, of course, go to mute for the track I don't want for the devil, and then I go to File, Export, Multi-track Mixdown, Entire Session, and that's going to allow me to save this wherever I want with just the angel's voice, and then I would do the same thing for the devil's voice. And so that gives me a isolated audio track of just the devil speaking, so I know the audio, the lips aren't going to move when the angel's speaking, and vice versa. So now I can import that audio track in Character Animator by going to File, Import, find that audio file. Here's my angel mixdown up here, drag it into my timeline, and now I've got that. And now to get the mouth shapes for my character calculated, all I have to do is select my puppet and go to Timeline, Compute Lip Sync Take from Scene Audio. And now when I play this back, I see that the character's mouth is moving and all the mouth shapes are showing up correctly. Now, there are a few things that I had to fix, like there's a straight S here. I don't want that. Maybe this, D wasn't quite right. So I just select it and click it, right click it and change it to, an or an ah or whatever. So what I did was I kind of just play through it and watch it and see if there's anything that feels off. The thing I do the most in the lip sync edits are chop things off the beginning and the end. So, just kind of these stray extra pieces, mouth shapes that I don't need. And then look for parts where the mouth feels like it's like held on for too long and it missed a syllable when I'm saying like, exciting. And it only looks like exciting. And the mouth is like stuck in one shape. And then what I would do in that case, so let's say like this S, is for too long and there's another syllable in here. I would just select that. I'm going to go to the split command, edit split, which is Command Shift D on Mac, Control Shift D on Windows. That's going to basically split that S in half and then I can right click it and change it, to whatever other shape I want. And so now if I were to, look at this again, now it gets that new shape in there and it works a little bit better. So in the last AI tutorial, we talked a lot about how to rig your character and get it together, but we didn't talk much about the recording process. So let's do a little refresher about how you would record a character in Character Animator. Basically, if I select my character here in a scene, I've got these things with red dots over here called behaviors. And they're going to allow me to record different things: tracker, eye gaze, face, lip sync, all these different things that are possibilities of what your character can do. Now, if I only wanted to record one thing at a time, I could, turn some of these off and say, you know what, I only want to focus, for example, on the face. And now I'm just moving the face around. You'll notice that the mouth isn't moving anymore. The eyes are moving anymore because I've turned those things off. So you can kind of think of it as recording music. You are either recording all the instruments at once or recording one instrument at a time and slowly building up. So the way I did it for these characters is I recorded everything live except for the lip sync because I had already done that. And the triggers, things like the eyes and the mouth changing from happy to sad, I did that later as well. So for this initial recording, I turned off the lip sync, and I could turn off the microphone icon too because I don't care about the character talking anymore. I've already got my voice tracked down and the triggers off as well. And then, honestly, I just pressed record and just started listening and kind of doing slow, subtle motions to the character as they're talking. And so I could see in the timeline down below when things were coming up and listening to when I should move my head back and forth. I'm not going crazy. I think a lot of people, again, their first time they do performance capture, they feel like they got to move all over the place and move around. And that doesn't look that great. Really, we want more subtle movements of our head back and forth. Maybe we accentuate a certain thing when they say something back and forth like that. Just kind of playing around with it and having fun with it and just not thinking too deeply about it. Once that general recording was done, I turned all that stuff off. You can hold down Command and click to turn things off, Command on Mac, Control on Windows to turn everything off. And then I just did the triggers. And for the triggers, I didn't record the triggers live. Like you could press record and then say, okay, I'm going to press 1 at this time, to make the mouth go sad, or, 2 or 3 to do these different eyes. And if you want to do that, like as a live performance thing, that totally works too. For me, I found I got a little more precision if I did it all in the timeline. So what I did was just when I press record, I just made sure I had an active state for each of my triggers over here. So I did a 1 for the mouth and a 2 for the eyes, and that's all I needed. And then I stopped. And now in my timeline, I've got these triggers down here that I can expand and extend however I want. So let's take both of my triggers tracks here and just extend them all the way for the entire portion of this thing. So now I know I've got a mouth state and a eye state for every part of the whole thing. And so now I can go and say, okay, here's where I want. Right now, the eyes are always stuck in this position. Obviously, I don't want that. So I'm going to go to my eye trigger down here, my lids trigger, and say, okay, now I want, instead of impressed eyes, I'm going to split it by going to Edit Split, which is Command-Shift-D on Mac, Control-Shift-D on Windows, just like in Audition, and same sort of thing. And then I'm going to, right-click and change this to the open instead. So now the eyes start open, and then they switch to impressed, and then they'll probably go back to open. I don't want to overdo these different ones too much. And then I keep going and say, okay, stay open, and then maybe here, again, I'm going to split and go to happy, and then back to open after that ends. And I just go through the whole thing, listening to it and thinking about when this character would be happy or kind of sure of themselves, impressed by themselves, or have wide open eyes, and go through and add the triggers. Exact same thing for the mouth. So if I feel like, she's sad about something, I would do that, and then I would split it. And whoops, wrong. I don't want to split the whole track. I just want to split this take. So make sure the take is selected and split that and change it to the happy mouth instead. And so back and forth between those two mouth sets. So over the course of 2 minutes, at any given phrase, the character is probably doing, 2, 3, 4 different triggers, swaps at any given time between the mouth and the eyes. And that kind of lends to the emotion that the character is giving across in the scene. And so when you couple those with what the character is saying, with the eyebrows, with the eye position, with the head movements, all of that together kind of creates the emotion of the character at that particular point. So the recording process honestly went by pretty quickly. I feel like with both of these characters, once I had them rigged, once I had the audio ready to go, doing these basic motions and adding the triggers and stuff like that, it wasn't that bad. I would say it probably took an hour tops, probably half an hour for each character to record this 2-minute section for each one, and then add the triggers, refine them, do all the lip sync edits, all of that stuff. So not too bad to get two, animated characters ready to go for this. And with that, now I'm done with Character Animator. I don't have to worry about it anymore, and I can move into Adobe After Effects. Actually, I'm going to Premiere first. Let's go to Premiere Pro first, because we're going to do the editing there first. So next, because this was going to be a mix of animation and live action, I ended up filming my son Cameron downstairs in our kitchen and had him looking at his shoulders and kind of, looking back and forth and then saying his lines at certain times as well. I'm getting pretty inconsistent lighting here. I should have closed these blinds. This is not a professional operation here, folks. But I did, here's kind of a look at where the setup was. So I had this, my phone on a little tripod here. I had this light. I had the iPad playing the script, the audio of what the characters were saying so he could react to that, and that sort of setup. So that worked out pretty well. So basically, the audio recording he was listening to was a mix of both of the characters talking together. So I showed in Adobe Audition how I had just the exported one just for the angel and just for the devil, where I also exported one with both of them together and allowed him to listen to that and be able to react to that to see where he was looking at any given time. You see my dog in the background as well, which is kind of a fun cameo Easter egg. Now, you might have noticed, if you're looking closely, that he's got these little pieces of masking tape with dots on his shoulder. What the heck is going on there? So, we did a bunch of, different shots, as well as this intro, and then a shot where he was just kind of looking at his shoulder over here, and then his other shoulder over here. And there's these little pieces of tape with dots on them. So why did we put these on him? Well, this was for tracking, because this is where the character eventually went in After Effects. And I'll show you how I did that in a second. But that gave him a reference of something to look at, as well as something that made the tracking a lot easier later on when we brought it into After Effects. So that's why I did it. This is not going to be a tutorial on how to edit in Premiere Pro. Obviously, there are thousands of tutorials about how to do that elsewhere, but just know that I went through it without the characters and kind of the placeholders for what he would be doing and what was happening. And then this is something that I would then bring in to After Effects later. So once I was happy with how this all came out and looked, I decided to open it up in After Effects. All right, so now we're moving over to After Effects, and this is where things really start to get interesting, because we are starting to track the characters on Cameron's shoulder here. We've got some shadows in there to make them feel a little bit more believable. There's a few things we're doing here that help really sell that this is happening to him. So how would we do this? Well, number one, we import our Premiere Pro project file into After Effects. And the way I would do that is just double click anywhere in this project panel, find that Premiere Pro project that I'm looking for, and go ahead and click open. It's going to ask me for what sequence I want. In this case, this is the sequence that I named Intro 3 for some reason. I don't even remember why. Click OK. And now this has been added as footage inside After Effects. And so I can see my whole edit here ready to go. So what I'm going to do is make a new composition with this. So I'm just going to drag this into this new comp icon down here. And now I've got a new thing. So let's just call this tutorial, because that's what I'm doing. And I want to make sure that my frame rate in particular is the same as Character Animator and the same as Premiere. So I'm going to go up with this selected, go to Composition Settings, and just make sure, yeah, it's set to 24 frames per second. Okay, so that looks good. Just saying you want to take care of ahead of time and not later. So now I need my characters. So what I'm going to do is double click to import yet again, find the character animator project file that I did the angel and the devil characters in, open it up, and again, find the sequence for each of them. So I can do the angel, and that's going to bring my angel character in, which I could drag into the scene. Pretty big there, but we'll deal with that in a second. And then same thing for the devil character, brings up this, let's bring the devil, select that, okay, and drag that character in as well. Okay, right now, both these characters are freaking huge, so let's select them both, press S, and scale them down so they are slightly smaller. And now I can kind of just position them on their basic sides in the scene. Now, right now, this is going to look bad because they're kind of just floating in midair for the entire sequence, but that's something we're going to change pretty soon here. Okay, so first things first, right now, these really stand out. They look a little overly saturated. So the very first thing I'm going to do is select both of them, shift select them, go to Effect, Color Correction, and go to Hue and Saturation. And I'm just going to bring the saturation down slightly, something like 18 or 19. For this is right now selected on the devil character, but now I'm also going to do it for the angel character. And that's just going to make them look a little bit more integrated into the scene. Otherwise, I feel like they look a little too bright. So here's it with it off, here's it with it on. It just felt a little more believable to me to do something small like this. There are some more advanced ways you can do color correction. I'm not going to get into. This is kind of the quick and cheap and dirty way to do it. Now, there's a little bit of an intro, so the characters don't start here. So I did a little bit of timing. I moved them down to where they actually start. And so I just listened to, the track and listened to where the angel comes in at first and made sure I moved them both at the same time to show up, because I want that timing to always be the right back and forth where, one character talks and then the next character talks and always have that same timing. So I made sure that was, consistent. And once I lined that up with this actual, the recording back here, I could mute this because I don't need that track anymore. Now I've just got my, my two characters talking, and later on I brought in some background music as well to add in. Now, right now I'm in the default workspace view. I'm just going to go to the all panels view, which is a little more complicated, but it is going to give me some of the tools that I'm going to need to see this through. There's one more control that I want here, though. I'm going to go to Window, Preview, and add this thing. And this just helps me kind of step forward, back and forth in my timeline. And this just makes it easier for kind of frame by frame precision for me. So we can see that there is a certain part where things start. And this character, in this beginning part, it's only the angel on his shoulder and not the devil. So let's kind of go through this and kind of scan. Here's my first part, and then it's going to switch at a certain point to being on the shoulder. So what I'm going to do is when that part happens, I'm going to select my angel and I'm going to split this track again. So Command-Shift-D on Mac, Control-Shift-D on Windows. And now I have two instances of this angel split exactly right. So now I can manipulate these characters individually. So I can pull down, let's press S for scale. Maybe I make this character a little bit bigger. Now I press R for rotation. Maybe I rotate her a little bit. And let's put her like right around this area where she'd be on the shoulder. But now that is a separate instance from this one, right? And so now I can take this character, I can make it, even smaller and rotate it again. Same thing I was doing before, put it over here, something like that. And so now there's these two parts that are the character moving around. Now the timing's the exact same because I split in the exact right place. I'm not moving this or changing this timing at all. And then when I get to here, where the angel stops talking and now the devil's going to come in right around here, let's say. Now I'm going to split yet again, and now split where the devil shows up, and I can delete this part because he doesn't show up any earlier. So I just go through the whole track kind of doing this exact thing where I'm moving my characters into their basic places. I'm not doing any tracking yet or anything like that. I'm just kind of getting them in their general scales and moving them back and forth and kind of stepping through. So when I look through it, I've got a general rough cut of where my characters should be placed at any given time. So now we move into the part of why were these little dots here? Well, again, we want to track the character moving with Cameron's shoulder. It does move a lot. And if I just kept it like this, this isn't going to look that great, right? It's going to very clearly look pasted on. We want the character to realistically move around with his shoulder, even though those movements are pretty subtle. So what we're going to do is select our initial footage down here, and we're going to go to this thing called Tracker. And what I want to do is I'm going to want to track motion. But before I do that, I'm going to add a null layer above my angel character, whatever scene he does right here. So let's go to Layer, New, Null Object. And that's going to, by default, make same that goes across the whole track. I don't want that. So I'm just going to press Option and the bracket, left to right bracket, to trim this. Of course, you could also, if you're not tired of splitting yet, you could split this and delete it and do it that way as well. There's always 100 ways to do anything in Adobe products, as you should know by now. Okay, so now I've got this general null layer that's above my character. And I'm going to basically add some tracking data to this null. And the reason I do that is because then I've got this kind of extra invisible layer that I can add my character to and move around. And then later, if I want to resize or reposition or move my character, I can do that separately from the null. So it's just an extra step, but it's going to make your life a lot easier if you want to change things later on. Okay, so I'm going to go to the first frame of where this shows up. I'm going to go down here to my intro, my video file, and I'm going to go to track motion. That is going to open it up in a new view. So I'm not in my comp anymore. I'm in my layer view, and I've got this track point over here. I'm going to click and drag this and find where that shoulder is. So let's look down over here. There it is. So I'm just kind of clicking and dragging, and now I found where this dot is. And the nice thing about the tracker is it's going to look for this dot and where it moves on every frame. So if you've done a really good job tracking, all you have to do is press this play button right here under Analyze, and it's just going to follow it like that. Now, it went to the next frame, the next scene. That's okay, not a big deal. But you could also, if you really did a bad job of this, which I did in several parts of the video, or camera was moving a lot, instead of pressing play, I would have to go step by step. And if it got out of frame, let's say you moved too fast or something like that, I would have to manually adjust this and reposition it and say, okay, now it's back here. So that can happen sometimes as well. But luckily, this one was pretty easy and didn't require that much moving. Okay, so then when I'm done, I need to edit the target of where I'm going to make this tracked. So I don't want it on just the video track. I want it to be on this null layer, which I called null 35. That's because I made quite a lot of nulls in the previous project. But let's go ahead to edit target and find that particular layer, null 35, and click OK. So now I have a target of where I want this tracking data to go. Basically, I want to copy and paste this tracking data to this null. I'll click apply, click OK, and now that tracking, that null, see this little rectangle? Let's get the angel out of the way for a second. This little thing is moving with his shoulder in that tracking dot. And so now all I have to do is take my angel character here, change it to the source name, and we will go to this mode. If you're not seeing this little pick whip tool down here, you want to click toggle switches and modes to be able to see it. And then I'm going to go over here and click and drag it and attach it with this little stringy thing over here to null 35. And what that's going to allow me to do now is the angel is going to move with his shoulder as it moves around because it is trying to follow its parent, which in this case is the null. So in short, you basically copy and paste and do that 25, 30 times for this 2-minute short, and you're done. And so that's what I ended up doing for this entire thing, is going through it, adding nulls, tracking the dots, and manipulating the characters so they felt like they were following. Now, one other nice detail that you might have noticed is that I also added a shadow under the characters. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this character by going to Edit Duplicate, or I'm just going to do Command D on Mac or Control D on Windows. Then I'm going to pick whip this character to my original character so I know it'll move with that character. They're all going to the same way. It really doesn't matter. And then I'm just going to take this on-screen tool. I want to make sure I'm at the layer that's under my character here, this one down here. And I'm just going to kind of skew it like this and bring it down. And maybe I'll bring it in a little bit so that wings aren't going off the edge or anything like that. And that's looking pretty good, something like that. Okay, so then I'm going to go back to my effects for this character. So in this case, we had the saturation that we brought down. It looks like it got rid of that in this workspace. So I'm going to go to my workspace here and I want my effect controls. Here we go. That's what I want. And now I'm going to turn the saturation all the way down. So we're all the way down here, and the lightness all the way down. So now I've got it as this black, solid black layer down here. Then I'm going to go to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, Fast Box Blur. In this case, this character was pretty huge, so I have to go all the way up to 50 to get a blur that actually feels like it works, but your mileage may vary based on your character. And then finally, I'm going to add some transparency to sell the effect. So we press T for transparency, which is called opacity over here. I'm going to change that. I think I did around 25 or something like that. And now that is also going to move with the character as they move and just help sell the effect a little bit more. Now, I knew that in this case, there's a lamp, there's a chandelier that's behind the character. And so that's why I had the shadow going this way. But you can, of course, adjust it to whatever you want for your character. Be careful what thing you're actually selecting here. So if it was behind the character or more, to the side of the character. So let's imagine it was, over on one side and then I kind of rotate it here, something more along the lines of that. I could do that as well. So you have a lot of control over how you want that shadow to look. I just did something pretty simple and basic and straightforward, but you can, of course, get as complicated as you want with this sort of stuff. So those are the basics of what's happening here. I don't want to go too deep into, After Effects and all the things that are possible because we'd be here for another 5 hours. Maybe I'll do something like that in the future. I've done a few After Effects tutorials in the past if you're interested in this sort of stuff. But the one thing I wanted to show here, when you are mixing animated characters with your reality, one thing that can happen is things can kind of layer over top of each other and get in the way. Case in point, when Cameron looks over here at this part, you'll notice his nose kind of collides with the character. And this doesn't look good, right? It looks like the character is in front, but in reality, I think his nose should probably be in front. So what do we do with that? Well, we're going to make a mask and basically mask out his nose. So what I'm going to do is zoom into this section. I'm going to make sure that my layer of the devil is selected because that's the part I really want to hide is parts of him. And then I'm going to go to my pin tool up here and I'm just going to click and drag and make this little basic buffer around where it's going to be occluding the character. And I'm going to give it a wide berth around, not that close, wide berth around the character to not have it mask anything else. So this is the part I really care about. And down here, you'll see that a mask has been created for my character. So I'm going to do a feather of maybe about 15. What does the feather mean? That just means it's going to kind of be a gradual, not as harsh a cut of the mask. And so same around 15 works pretty well for this, but you could play around with it and see what works for you. And then because I want the path to change, I'm going to keyframe this by clicking this stopwatch icon. Okay, so now I've got my first keyframe for where this shows up. And let's go back to our preview over here. And let's just kind of move forward 2 frames. Okay, so now we're getting to the point where there is a problem here and the ear is starting to collide with the nose. So what I can do is just drag these little parts here. And now this mask is going to change. And now if I were to click off of this, you'll see it's starting to occlude where that ear is showing up. And so I might want to make this a little bit more precise digging in here so it cuts off at exactly the right moment, exactly the right place. Now if I click off of this, you'll see that looks a little bit better. So for me, I'm not doing this for every single frame. I'm going kind of every 2 frames and seeing where we're at and then saying, okay, let me select one of the keyframes here, get my controls back, and then I can either move the whole thing if that's easier. So you can see it's kind of cutting into my character here. That's one way to do it. Or I can do it individually. So I could just select here, and then select a point that allows me to say, okay, here's how I want it. And because his head is rotating a little bit and the nose is kind of changing its shape, I ended up doing more with these points and handles just to make it look as good as I possibly could. So when I'm done with that, the end result is something that looks like that, where it hopefully isn't even noticeable. Now, if you look really closely, you'll see it's kind of moving a little bit. There's a little bit of a gap sometimes, but for, something quick on social media, it's not that bad and it gets the job done and is way better than what I previously had. So playing around with that. Note, I did try to rotate and position the characters so that wouldn't happen as much as possible, but sometimes I just, couldn't avoid it. So that's really it. I mean, there's a few other things here and there, but honestly, that is the main way that I did most of this video, and kind of the basics of, hey, make a character in AI, bring it into Character Animator, or bring it into Photoshop to do cutting apart, and then bring it to Character Animator to rig and animate. Audition for the audio, Premiere for the editing, After Effects for the compositing. Adobe is not paying me by the product, I assure you. And just it all comes together to create something, pretty fun. So it's, this was a really fun project, and I think it turned out really well. And the really nice thing is now I've got these characters ready to go. And so if I wanted to make a follow-up, that includes now the devil and angel on someone else's shoulder, or a follow-up of, another kind of situation, I could easily redo that. And I would save myself the upfront time of creating the characters and rigging and all of that stuff. So I think that helps a lot. By the way, one quick performance note. If you are seeing, things are taking a while, particularly when you have a lot of characters and a lot of shadows and stuff like that, it might be, your computer might be really chugging along. So I, a lot of times, will change my preview settings to be different. So I might change it to, be a third resolution or quarter resolution or skip frames or that sort of thing. And that way it's going to run when you're playing things back a little bit nicer, a little bit easier. It should go a little bit faster for you and allow you to work better. And then, obviously when you export it at full quality, it'll look great. So more than anything, I just hope this gives you a bunch of ideas, that you see things like this and you say, okay, yeah, I could create some characters. And, whether it's an animated background or a live action video or whatever sort of thing you're doing, it's not that intimidating to have kind of a 2-character setup, bring them to life, do the voices, bring them in, composite them all together. You can make some really, really interesting things. And I think particularly for social media shorts, this type of workflow works really, really well. So yeah, hope this was helpful. All right, so that's it. And I know that was a lot to take in, but hopefully somewhere in there were some interesting, inspirational parts that help you create your own stories. So whether that's creating AI-generated animated characters for whatever types of ideas you have, mixing animation and live action, doing your dialogue and pitch shifting, whatever the case may be, hopefully there was some good tidbits in this tutorial for that. So I would love to see what you create with this. So please use #CharacterAnimator when sharing any of this type of stuff on social media, so myself and the rest of the Character Animator team can check it out. And if you have any questions, anything that was unclear here, or any other things that you're interested in with Character Animator and don't know the answer to, the best place to get help is the official Character Animator forums. All right, that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching and have fun.